Gonna subject your ears to bleeding because of my voice. I don't believe in torture, so that's why I'm not singing. Hello, my baby. Hello, my honey. Hello, my primetime gal. Hello, my midnight love.
Oh boy.
I did it again. I did it again. Jaybe, damn you. Anyway, welcome to RBN's Sabby and Jaybe show. I am one of your hosts, James Fauntleroy. So good to see you. What's up, my co-host, my sister from another Mr. Sabby Sabs?
What's going on, Jaybe?
Good to see you here. Good to see all of you joining for this beautiful evening. I would just like to let you guys know the Sabby and Jaybe show is every Thursday at 5 p.m. You can also see Sabby Sabs later tonight, right, Sabs?
That's right.
All right. So we'll talk about what you got going on in the show a little bit later in the hour. But if you guys have not, you guys can also see me here on RBN on Sundays at 1, and you can find me on my channel on Tuesdays at 2. Now, if you have not already, go ahead and give a like to the stream. This helps us out. So thank you so very much so that we can inform, encourage, and inspire. So thank you so very much for that. Also, if you have not already, you guys can join our mailing list. This gives you email notifications whenever we go live or upload any clips. So you guys can go to Revolutionary Blackout at Substack.com. So thank you very much for that. And for any email inquiries, any questions, or any stories you would like to submit to us, or if you just want to give some kind words of encouragement, you guys can go to revolutionaryblackout at outlook.com. So please, serious inquiries only. But thank you very much to everybody there. Now, just a blanket hello to everybody in the chat. We'll get to all of you in a little bit. But what are we talking about today? Well, we are talking about, was Candace lying? Did Candace Owens lie about communism? We're going to get into this, and we actually have a couple of people that we like to introduce. We have Noah Krejcik and Eddie Liger from Midwestern Marx here to debunk. Good to have you back on, gentlemen.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Great to be here. Thank you.
All right. So one of the things I wanted to share, first off, was when I first saw this, I was like, wait, what are you talking about, Noah? Noah, you actually posted this on Twitter. Now, this was a little while ago. This is back in mid-July, but you said, hey, Jimmy Dore, you should have me on or someone else associated with the Institute for Free America on your show to talk about how thoroughly Candace Owens was lying to the American people and to your audience regarding the history of communism and how it is played directly into Zionist hands, allowing them to paint the entire movement against the genocide in Palestine as anti-Semitic. There is reason she gets paid to do this, and the actual data backs up none of her claims. DM me, they're open. Let's set it up, brother. So, first of all, I just want to let people know, Noah, you are, but for all intents and purposes, ethnically, you are Jewish, right?
We say we're Jewish. That's kind of a joke. Because technically it's supposed to come down through your mom's side, and in my family it's through my grandfather. So it's kind of like, I'm not Jewish enough for them. Certainly not. But a few of my friends were Jewish, and I'm very familiar with it. And ethnically, yes, I'm part Jewish for sure.
Look, I passed the one drop rule, so
right.
But one of the things, and one of the reasons why I say that is because I don't want people to think, oh, there's no validity here because he's not Jew. Nobody on this panel is Jewish, and it's like, no. But one of the things I wanted to touch on was this particular video that was put out by Jimmy Dore, and Jimmy Dore had he had a conversation with Candace Owens. And I want to focus on the things that Candace Owens says. Now, while I'm playing, if you wish for me to stop, just say it out loud, JB, pause, because I might not be able to see you. And if we want to, debunk this line by line, because I know that you guys have your notes ready. And so you guys are ready to go. And I think this is very important that we need to debunk this. So let's go.
Yeah, can I just say before we start one thing?
I'm sorry.
Can I just say one thing before we start real quick?
Sure.
That people of Jimmy's generation are sort of predisposed to believe absolutely anything about communism. He had Jackson on when we founded the American Communist Party just to talk about it, and said that himself, right? So I think I don't want to like blame him for allowing this to go on. People of that generation, that age, are sort of just like programmed to go, oh, the communists did some crazy evil thing. Of course they did, right? So I want to place the blame squarely on Candace Owens for everything in this clip.
Okay. All right. So let's get into this and let us begin. So share the screen. All right.
So let me ask you two questions there about that. Tell me what is Yagoda and what happened with the Bolsheviks and the Christians?
Oh, you just casually killed 10 million Christians. It's incredible. People think that the greatest mass murderer was Adolf Hitler. And no, actually, if you want to talk about genocide, the fact that people in America don't know about what the Bolsheviks did to Christians, where did the idea of a concentration camp come from? The Bolsheviks. The reason why we're not.
Can we stop already?
Yep. First lie, because I even I know this fact. So, but please go ahead.
Yeah, you can take it if you want, Eddie, or I can.
No, you can go. I have some things to say about that Yagoda guy, but go for it.
Sure.
You take it.
Yeah.
First.
So here's the way these sort of pro-Nazi propaganda works, right? They always go, well, they weren't as bad as you're told, and that's how it begins, right? And this is, you can see where Candace Owens begins, and you can see where she is now, even a month later, right?
Yeah.
But aside from that, what they do is they will take actual violence that happened in the real world that's a tragedy. They will give you a false reason for it that has no actual verification whatsoever to it, that maybe there's some book some neo-Nazi wrote, right? That just no citation, no source, just says, oh, it was they hated Christians. But people who were Christians were killed. It just wasn't because they were Christians, right? During the revolution, between the 1905 sort of fall of the Kerensky government and the October Revolution of 1917, we see the dissolution of the Russian state in its entirety. And there is mass violence all over the country, right? There are peasants rising up and killing anything that even smelled like money, right? That was associated with the czars and the nobility, that was associated with sending them to war, etc. The reason the Bolsheviks gained power was because they were able to put a stop to this and bring some sense of order back to society.
Okay.
So what they do is they take all of this, they add deaths that happened later on during a civil war, and say, actually, the Bolsheviks planned all of this, and it's because they hated Christians. Really just taking it as a sort of canard, because Christians were the majority of the people there, right? They also don't mention the ethnic violence against Jews, which the Cossacks were really, really famous for. And here's the thing. She mentions concentration camps, but that's not really the case. I'm not talking about just widespread violence. I'm talking about terror and torture and horrible, horrible, horrible things. To sort of, to the point where old Tsarist officers were committing suicide rather than face these mobs, right? And the point that the Bolsheviks put a stop to it never gets brought up, and that's what really grinds my gears. That's all.
Let me just chime in here for a quick second, because I want people to pay attention to something that Candace does, right? So obviously Noah and Eddie know a lot about this particular subject, but she tends to go to places where she knows she's not going to get a lot of pushback for the BS that she's saying. So obviously she's not going to go onto Midwestern Marx for this conversation, because that kind of is their thing. Like, they know a lot about communism and the history of it. So what she'll do is, to Noah's point, she'll take one part of the story where there may be one kernel of truth, and she'll make that the sole reason for what happened. And that plays into the narrative that her audience wants to hear. And nobody else is really going to question her on it, because she's not going into spaces where people are very, very knowledgeable about that particular subject. So that's how Candace works. That's how she's able to, garner such a massive audience. She plays into what they want to hear. So again, you'll see her do this with policing as well. She'll take a kernel of truth from the incident, and she'll make it seem like that is the reason why things went the way that they did, but she'll leave out other truths that are really important for people to know, to understand what happened with that whole situation. So that's how she operates. And I think if they don't understand that or know that first when they're having a conversation with her, it's going to be very difficult to push back on her.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, and before Eddie goes, because I want to bring up this point, her saying that a bunch of Christians were killed is no different than saying that a bunch of Christians were also killed during the Cuban Revolution under, when they were going against Batista. And the thing is, like, how many people who were on the side of Batista, who were over the plantations in Cuba, how many of them were Christian? Or how many Christians died during the Civil War on the Confederate side? That's a question, because a lot of Christians probably died who were Confederate soldiers. But the thing is, they were Confederate soldiers. How many Nazis were actually Christian? Because the Pope actually prayed over the Nazi army. But the question is, oh my God, but they're Christians. The thing is, it's like Candace Owens is cherry picking in order to make it seem like, oh my God, Christians are being persecuted, when that's not the case. Hell,
how many people that have been killed by the police have been Christians, right? Do you hear her saying Christians are being killed by the police? No, you don't.
Yeah, exactly. And Eddie, you're a Christian, right? I mean, please, shed some light too.
Yeah, I wouldn't say I'm practicing, but I was born and raised in the evangelical church.
Me too.
But
Yeah.
And what Candace is accusing them here of genocide is genocide. So like you guys said, she's making this broad narrative, or trying to accuse them of something very specific, which is the targeted persecution and murder of Christians, which simply wasn't going on in the USSR. Like Noah said, there were Christians killed, and the power that the Russian Orthodox Church had was weakened by the revolution. But we have to remember that Russia was a semi-feudal country at the time. And under feudalism, the church acted as an economic and a political entity, a very powerful one. So the Orthodox Church owned a ton of land. It had a bunch of political influence. And the Bolshevik Revolution did away with that because they were giving the power to the working people, not to these feudal institutions. But they had religious protections written into their constitution, as well as protections against people who are non-religious, right? They said you can be religious or irreligious. Either way, we will fight for you to have that protection. And what you'll notice here with Candace is she'll never actually give a source for this claim that 10 million Christians were killed. I've been searching all day, and I can't find even a single one. You'll hear her say repeatedly in this video, you can just look this stuff up. Just look up this Genrikh Yagoda guy, and you'll see this. But I've been, like I said, I searched high and low, and I couldn't find it. This Genrikh Yagoda guy was someone who oversaw the gulags, and he was eventually shot by Stalin for espionage and for wrecking and being going against the revolution during World War II at a time when they were trying to prepare to take on Hitler. But even Wikipedia, which always inflates the death tolls of communism, says that this guy killed anywhere from 12 to 25,000, which is not Christians, just people in the gulags. And that's obviously way, way, way less than 10 million. And this, and a lot of the time, the way that they gather that data is Western historians, like the ones who wrote the Black Book of Communism, will do data extrapolation. So they'll say, well, the population in the gulags here was 2,000 in 1997. And then in 1998, the population was 1,000. So that means 1,000 people left the gulags, and we can assume that half of them were executed. And, you know, there's 500 deaths of communism. And that's how they count up these numbers. And
then they move the decimal place.
Right. And even with these inflated death tolls, they're only accusing this guy of 12 to 25,000. So I have no idea what Candace is talking about. She cites Gulag Archipelago. I looked through Gulag Archipelago. There's nothing about 10 million Christians here. I truly don't know. I think she probably saw it in a meme that a Nick Fuentes fan posted. That's honestly probably her actual source.
The primary source, and someone mentioned it in the comments actually, is a white supremacist documentary called the Europa: The Last Battle. And if you actually look at their Telegram posts, they admit that almost all their facts ended up being wrong. In that they were saying that everyone was Jewish, right? Because that's what they do. Everyone's secretly Jewish for some reason, as if that matters. They said Lenin was Jewish, and none of these things were true. But I want to focus on one thing regarding the church, because here's another example of her doing exactly what Sabby was just saying, right? Taking a tiny kernel of truth and then twisting it around and blowing it up out of proportion, right? The Tsarist church was literally telling people that the Tsars were appointed by God to take their families from them and have them fight for money for the Tsars, right? That was what World War I was. It was so that the Tsars could acquire more land, and there's a whole bunch to it. So what the Bolsheviks did was get rid of that Tsarist church. What Candace doesn't tell you is that the Stalin administration a few years later reformed the Orthodox Church, because it was a demand of the people. They wanted their church. And so that's what happened. They act like there's, this very top-down, evil, whatever, when it's always the exact opposite.
And I also think it's important for people to hear the other side. So I'm not sure, Noah, when you tweeted that, did you get any response about getting the opportunity to come on and clear up some of those talking points that Candace had?
No, unfortunately not. I don't know. I think Jimmy may not like the Institute for some reason or another. Other than that, maybe he's got a busy schedule. He does this for a living, Jimmy? And he's probably got people months out, I assume.
Are you talking about Jimmy?
Yeah.
Yeah, he had that one lady, the Libs of TikTok lady, who I don't like, on his show, and she had been connected with Zionist organizations and pushing Zionist stuff. And I made a big tweet like it would be nice to see Jimmy challenge her on some of this stuff, and he didn't like that and said I was smearing him and he wasn't actually giving her positive coverage, and then unfollowed me on X. So but the door's always open if he wants to do something together.
I always think it's good to have somebody be able to push back on those talking points. And I think this is what happens with Candace. And I saw when she went on to Mark Lamont Hill's show, who is an excellent debater. Like Mark Lamont Hill's debated a lot of people. He's debated like hardcore, like Zionists and all this kind of stuff. But I noticed even when she went on to his show, he was a lot softer with her than he was with some of his other guests that he brought on to actually debate. And so, and then towards the end of the conversation, to say, oh, and I would also like to come onto your show. And I'm like, nah, like we can't be playing this game, because the thing is like, there were a number of things that Candace said during the interview that she had with Mark Lamont Hill that were incorrect. And I felt like I'm like, why are people not pushing back? No, you have to push back on her. I don't care if you want to come onto our show. I don't care. I don't give a fuck. But the thing is you cannot allow people to just spew those lies and not push back. And if you don't know, I think it's great to have someone come on and give them the opportunity that does know the history of that, like you guys, to push back on that. Because otherwise the audience hears this and they don't hear any rebuttal and they assume, oh, okay, this is definitely true. And to Noah's point, she's not giving people, I guess, a lot of the sources like a lot of us do. Like when we read articles or when we play videos, like we tell you, like, this is what this is from. You can see, you know, so you can track that yourself. And not everybody's perfect and we're not perfect either. But I don't understand why this woman is going on to all these shows and she's spewing these lies. So that's my big thing. And I would like to see her have that conversation with Noah and Eddie so that they can correct that information.
Yeah. One of the things I do want to bring up as well is that what Net Rando says it says concentration camps were based on the reserve system of the First Nation and the Americas. So even the Nazis actually said that we got our idea for concentration camps from the United States. So therefore, when Candace Owens says, "Oh, they got it from the Bolsheviks," she was lying to you, lying. She wasn't just misconstrued or wrong. No, she lied. And the thing is, like, people need to realize, that's why I asked the question: was she lying? That is a truth that is, many people know that who don't know that much about the World War II. They know that part. So. Shall we move on? All right. So, man, we only got a few seconds in. We already. Oh my goodness! All right.
Sorry,
so, yeah, I know. All right. So let's go to 2 seconds.
The Bolsheviks. The reason why we're not allowed to learn about these people, we don't talk about Henryk Yagoda, is because he's a Jew. Right. And so it conflicts with the narrative of Jewish people always being the victim in every single circumstance. So we're willing to push away Christian history. We don't talk about Christian history whatsoever because they have this bizarre focus, our classrooms, on training us to have this bizarre allegiance to Israel. And so to suit us, I feel that we are heavily propagandized in the classroom. And the reason why I feel that way is because we spend years talking about the Holocaust, only for me to learn when I'm out of school about a bigger Holocaust that took place at the exact same time. We're locking arms with Stalin.
So the reason that, I mean, again, there's a kernel of truth to what she's saying here. The reason that the Holocaust is pushed so heavily in schools and taught so heavily in schools, and why there are so many Holocaust museums, is because of what Norman Finkelstein calls the Holocaust industry. During the 1950s, and this may be shocking, this was shocking to me, most Americans didn't even know that the Holocaust happened. They didn't know what it was. They didn't know there was a mass extermination of Jews, communists, disabled people, all these different groups in Germany.
Yes.
But at that time, obviously in the 1950s, Israel had just been founded, and Zionists realized that they could launder the memory of the Holocaust, weaponize the memory of the Holocaust in order to support Israel. So you have the formation, or at least all these groups like the ADL start focusing on pushing Holocaust education and tying it to the state of Israel. And that's what Finkelstein calls the Holocaust industry and dismantles in this book. And obviously, he's no Holocaust denier. His parents were Holocaust survivors. And he goes through, you know, the research of Raoul Hilberg, which intricately details all of the 5.1 to 6 million Jews who were exterminated in the Holocaust, which, you know, Candace Owens provides no intricate details here. It's just this wild claim that 10 million people were killed. But she says, you know, we never learn about the Christian genocide or whatever. What about King Leopold of Belgium killing 10 million black people in the Congo? Why don't we learn about that? That was a Holocaust. That was, you know, as many people as were killed or as were exterminated in the Holocaust, but there's no Congolese industry to push that in American schools.
Yeah.
That's
also,
right. And then, go ahead, JB.
Well, just to add to your point, there were Christians killed during the Holocaust as well by the Nazis. Who were they? Jehovah's Witnesses. Mm-hmm. And guess what? You're talking to a former Jehovah's Witness right now. How did I know about this for a long time? Because I was taught through my church of Jehovah's Witnesses about what they endured during the Holocaust. They were given the purple triangle. So the Jews were given the Star of David, which was yellow. The purple triangle was given to Jehovah's Witnesses, and gay people, anybody who was queer, was given a pink triangle. And then on top of it, also people who are disabled were also murdered as well. And people who also were German, who resisted the Nazi party, were also murdered during the Holocaust too. So when people talk about it was just Jews, no, baby. It was more than just Jews that were killed. Because remember in that poem, they said first they came for the communists, for I did not speak out because I was a communist. Then they came for the socialists, and I did not speak out because I was a socialist. Then they came for the trade unionists because I did not speak out because I'm not trade unions. So all these different groups are also part of the people that were murdered during the Holocaust. Go ahead, Noah. I'm sorry, Sabby.
And this and this is without even getting into their plans for the Slavs, which was to exterminate and enslave them as an inferior race. So the entire Central Asian and Slavic peoples were planned to stomp out as well, right?
Yeah.
It's just that the Soviets fought back and won.
And I'll also add too, again, going back to that kernel of truth, like, yes, there's truth that there's some propaganda in the classroom, that they don't tell us everything that happened in history. They only select certain pieces of history to teach us, or that is in the textbooks. But at the same time, you know, I could say the same thing about the Black Panthers. They don't teach you the truth about the Black Panthers in history textbooks. Why isn't Candace making a fuss about that? Because that doesn't fit her brand. If she were to make a fuss about the lies that they told people about the Black Panthers and what the Black Panthers were really about, her audience wouldn't be too much into that. So, and not everybody in her audience, but the majority of the audience wouldn't be so much into that. They don't want to hear about that. So again, that's going back to that kernel of truth and making it seem like that's the big picture.
Oh, I grew up, the high school I went to was only a couple miles away from where the Black Panthers were called in to stop the Huff riots, right? And they were the only ones with sway over the community that could put an end to the violence, right? And we got taught in that high school, so close to where this, legendary historical event happened, that the Black Panthers were Black power enthusiasts that wanted to oppress white people instead. That was what we were told, which is the most absurd thing in the world. I don't know. I had something else I was going to say about her, but now I just got off on the Panthers and forgot.
And in my textbooks, it said that they were militant extremists, and they were, defying the government and all this kind of stuff. Never mentioned that they, started the free breakfast program. Never mentioned that they were doing mutual aid. None of those things were ever mentioned.
Yeah.
And of course not.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I just said, of course not.
And to add to your point, Sabs, the fact that the United States instituted free lunch for students across the nation because of what the Black Panther Party did.
Mm-hmm.
So they actually had an influence over how well our kids are actually being treated in the education system.
It's interesting how they demonize the Panthers, and not to get too far on this tangent, but they demonize the Panthers and then they pacify MLK. So they'll be like, the Panthers are these wild, murderous extremists, but MLK was a good guy. He was a total pacifist, didn't say anything about socialism, ignore all the militant stuff he did and said.
Yeah, definitely. All right, let's get back to the video. There's so much to unpack.
Stalin. I mean, you read Alexander Solzhenitsyn talking about the gulags and who built those gulag systems, who created those gulag systems. The majority of them, he eventually wrote a book, were Jewish men. And of course, this has not become collective guilt. Doesn't mean all Jews are Bolsheviks and think this way.
I apologize. Can I share my screen real quick?
Sure.
Is it okay if I share my screen real quick?
Yeah, sure.
I want to show you guys the entire title of the Solzhenitsyn book that she's speaking of. All right, you see that? The Gulag Archipelago, right? an experiment in literary investigation. This book is fiction. It is an experiment in literary investigation, right? It's an experimental form of novel that he's writing where he takes bits and pieces of things he's heard and writes entire stories out of them. His own wife said that he was doing this and that he made half of them up. He didn't even have things he'd heard. I don't understand where this novel gets any historical relevance from. It's absurd to me.
And what she'll do is she'll speak pretty quickly so that you don't have time to fact check it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right, absolutely. And this is something Jordan Peterson does with this book too. And even this book, which is like as Noah said, basically a work of fiction, doesn't make the claim that 10 million Christians were killed in the gulags. And Noah's made this point before, maybe even on your guys' show, but the prison system that existed under the Tsar, under the monarchs, was extensive, and there was widespread torture, widespread execution. Lenin's brother was executed by the monarchy, which was sort of what helped harden him and put him on the path to become a revolutionary. But there were massive prison systems, including in capitalist countries. And of course, we know the prison system in the U.S. today. And what the Soviets were trying to do with the gulags, and it's a socialistic idea, if you think about it, was re-education through labor. So take people who are criminals, who had gone down a bad path, give them a job, give them skills, and then hopefully they can actually be reintroduced into society. And eventually they ended up abolishing the gulag system and reforming it heavily because of all the attacks that they got over it from the West. But if you compare that to the U.S. prison system today, which has far more people than there ever were in the gulags, our recidivism rate is over 70%. We're not rehabilitating people. We're ruining their lives with the prison system in order to make money for a handful of corporations. So the gulag system pales in comparison to the prison industrial complex of the U.S. today.
Not to mention that the gulag was abolished in the 50s when the rest of the industrialized world abolished prison labor, right? And they got rid of it too, except for the US. And remember what era this is. This goes away in the Soviet Union in the 50s. What era is that over in the US that is talking about these scary gulags? It's Jim Crow, where people are being locked up and chain ganged over their skin color. So the idea that the Soviets and these scary word gulag is some unique evil while this is happening in the other giant country in the world is ludicrous.
Yep, definitely. All right, let's get back to the video. Whew. Her pants are on fire. I don't care what nobody says. All right, let me go back just a couple seconds. All right.
Collective guilt doesn't mean all Jews are Bolsheviks and think this way. But the fact that I'm denied the right to talk about my history while you demand I talk about yours and you demand that I worship Israel doesn't fly with me. I'm just sick and tired of the subjugated Christian. I'm sick and tired of the tail in between your leg Christian that is like Israel first, and then I'll get to the New Testament. It doesn't make any sense to me. I'm uncomfortable with it. And that was probably the first time in that entire interview that Piers shut up because he knows I'm right.
Hang on. Let me just add this. She's making it seem like that there is this war on Christianity when in fact that is absolutely patently false. Her pants are on so much fire it's turned into plasma. This is the most ridiculous claim I have ever heard in my life, especially when you have every single year they have the National Prayer Breakfast in Washington, D.C., where you have Christian leaders come from all over the world in order to pray and mix church with state. That is such complete and utter baloney I've ever heard for in my life. Go ahead, Sabs.
It's also the dominant religion in the United States, too. It's not like Christianity is like shunned in the United States. It's not. I used to live in the
nation
Bible Belt.
under God.
Right. Even the Pledge of Allegiance and all that. Like I used to live in the Bible Belt in the Southeast in the Carolinas where there's like a church on like every other corner and all that kind of stuff. So it's just she's making it seem like, you know, this other phase of victimhood and again, a kernel of truth in there, which is that, you know, Israel first, right? That's the kernel of truth that we've been pushed in this country, and you hear it a lot now, especially with what's happening with Gaza. But again, that doesn't mean that she can't talk about being a Christian. That doesn't mean that she can't, especially isn't if I remember correctly, I'm not sure if she lives there, but isn't the Daily Wire, aren't there studios in Tennessee? Aren't they in Tennessee? If I remember correctly? I believe that's where they're located. Okay, so I have a best friend that lives in the Nashville area in Tennessee, has lived there for years. Another state that is a big part of the Bible Belt. So I don't understand. Like, how are you? How are you prevented from being a Christian? Now, are they teaching Christianity in the public school system? No, because we have separation of church and state, which I firmly support. I don't think you should have any religion taught in a public school classroom. That is up for the parents to do if they want to teach their kid a religion or to follow a religion. So to me, I felt like this was a reach by Candace. I get what she's saying about Israel. And like I said, I agree with her about the whole need to put Israel first and how it's ridiculous in this country. However, what Candace was trying to do, and I want people to understand, when she was fired from the Daily Wire, instead of Candace taking the same type of criticism that those of us on RBN made, that like, oh, look, Candace, you were part of this network with all these dudes and you were the token. She was the token. It is what it is. And they got rid of you. And instead of focusing on the fact that it was all about putting Israel first and you didn't want to be pro-Israel, she decided to frame it as, oh, I was being attacked because I'm a Christian. No, they used you for their cause. You were the black face to make white people feel comfortable. That's what they used you for. They got what they needed from you. And the moment that you were not pro-Israel, they were like, okay, you got to go. Mm-hmm. This is what it is. Now, she won't say that, though, because if she were to say that, that would turn off a majority of her base. So instead, she tries to use the religious reason, and she says it's because she was Christian. Get out of here.
Yeah. I went to Christian church every day, or I'm not every day, but every Sunday and every Wednesday for 18 years. And the amount of oppression I faced in the U.S. is zero. Even in school, like they had to make stuff up to feel oppressed about, like, oh, they're publishing Harry Potter books, these are witchcraft, let's get together and burn them. Or they're not teaching creationism in schools, they're teaching evolution. Which even, you know, if you grow up in a small town in the Midwest, if you bring up creationism in school, nobody's going to get mad at you. Like you can bring it up or challenge evolution. Like it was discussed in almost every, because it became such a controversial thing. All my science teachers had to bring up creationism when they were teaching evolution. Like there is no oppression of Christians in this country. And what she's complaining about is Christian Zionists. She's complaining about these Christians who manipulate Christian theology. They take Christian theology and say, you always have to support Israel unconditionally because of an end times prophecy where God will come down and take all the Christians up to heaven and leave everyone else here to live in chaos, which is actually pretty anti-Semitic if you think about it, that, you know, the world's going to end and all the Jews will get left behind in chaos. But those people who are pushing that ideology are not the tail between their leg persecuted Christians. They're the most powerful Christians in the country. The leading evangelical Zionist right now is Mike Pompeo. He is one of the most powerful, high up, well-connected people, one of the most well-connected neocons in the United States. This is not somebody who's persecuted.
The president.
Right.
I mean, and here's the thing that grinds my gears. Candace Owens made her career on talking about how the leftists are always self-victimizing. And this is precisely what she's doing. And I think my, tinfoil hat is that her and the Fuentes thing and all of this lines up at a very opportune time for the ruling class, as the working class is beginning to find its footing in some sort of dissidence. the anti-Semitic sort of Jews control everything line comes in to disrupt that, right? And try to draw people away from it. But she has to do her self-victimization in a way that goes into that narrative, right? She's like, oh, look at that. The Jews were attacking me. It's like, get over yourself. How can you be that completely oblivious to what was so obvious to millions of us?
This ideology literally makes you schizophrenic. It'll make you like see Jews everywhere. Everyone's a Jew. The Jews are plotting against you. It's crazy.
Does she not realize that the majority of Zionists in the United States are Christians?
It's also funny, before we move on, I want to say this. All of you who are on this panel right now, what is the biggest holiday that you ever celebrated in school?
Christmas.
But there's a war on Christians.
And on Christmas itself.
I always thought that the war on Christmas was like we went to war on Christmas Day, right? Like once it gets to Christmas Day, we're going to war. I guess not. No.
I mean, we had Secret Santa at school and everything. Like we had a Christmas tree in the classroom. We got to decorate and all that type of stuff. So I don't.
We had a little store where we go shopping for our parents and our families and stuff. That, yeah.
The teachers just aren't supposed to make it religious, which they don't. It's a cultural thing. More of a cultural holiday at this point, anyways. And kids who want to be religious about it, be religious about it.
Yeah. But the thing is, ultimately, it's supposed to be a Christian holiday. So when people talk about, oh, well, there's a war on Christianity, and I'm like, that's the biggest holiday that's celebrated in this country. So there's no validity to that whatsoever. So,
Easter's another big one, right? That's another Christian holiday. I don't know.
Yeah, even like dyeing the eggs. Like I remember we used to dye the eggs and stuff when I was little.
Yep. Goodness gracious. She's like, they're gonna stop you from dyeing your eggs. Oh Lord, green eggs and ham.
It's utterly ridiculous to come to a Christian and say, have you used your platform to talk about Israel? Do you think that he would go to a Jewish person and say, have you used your platform to talk about Armenia? And if the answer is no, then why not? It's because what has happened is that it's not an equal system. No, it's not equality. They are treated, Israel as a country is treated with special interests. And I got to say about Israel, just looking at the history there, I mean, this is our greatest ally, as they say. That's the program. This is our greatest ally. I mean, with allies like that, who needs enemies? All right. In terms of the things.
Go ahead.
Everything she's saying here can be debunked in this book. This is a really important book to read. I feel like as all these people like Fuentes and Candace Owens are becoming more popular, because it will show you, it will show you what about the Holocaust has actually been exaggerated and has actually been utilized by Zionists for their own interests. And then it shows you, of course, there were these real massacres that went on. It was horrific. It was the targeting and the attempted extermination of Jewish people, disabled people, all the people we mentioned before. He's not a Holocaust denier. But he explains how these Zionist organizations like the ADL and AIPAC have laundered the memory of the Holocaust for so long and spent so much money on making it a fixture in American culture, making sure every American knows about the legacy of the Holocaust, that certain things have ended up getting exaggerated, or the Holocaust ends up getting more focused than things like King Leopold and what he did in Belgium. But all of these can be explained by material reasons. It's not, a secret cabal of Jewish people at the top. It's Zionist organizations who in the 50s realized that it would be intelligent to align themselves with U.S. imperialism. So that's what they did. They made sure that Israel would always protect U.S. imperialism's interests in the Middle East, always protect the interests of Western finance capital and multinational corporations, and then pushed a bunch of pro-Israel propaganda in the U.S. And it's been a very pertinent strategy. We see how loyal the U.S. empire is to Israel today. They see them as a necessary appendage of the empire to serve as an outpost of Western imperialist interests in the Arab world or in the Middle East. But all of this was part of a strategy by imperialists, by finance capitalists, by capitalists, which shows you, the root of this. The root, that is what Israel is. It's a neo-colony of capitalist imperialism in the place where the Middle East, the place where the most, imperialist aggression has been focused over the last 2 decades at least. So she's like all of these goofball groypers and right-wingers who are anti-Zionist. Rather than having a sober and materialist analysis of how Zionism as an ideology arose and how it became popular in the U.S. and the financial and economic and powerful political interests that were behind this. Rather than analyze that, it's just, it's the Jews. There's a cabal of Jews. They're orchestrating everything. Somehow they have superpowers and they can control every section of the earth, and they're just pulling the strings, and then they'll, work backwards from that conclusion by trying to find Jews everywhere in every place of power and explain away every powerful person like Bill Gates, who is not Jewish, who, has insane control of the political system and the economic system, and is a Zionist. But if it goes against their narrative, they just ignore it and explain it away. But yeah, there's 2 ways you can go if you're an anti-Zionist. You can become schizophrenic like this, or you can understand capitalism, imperialism, and the root of our issues.
But Eddie, George Soros.
No, I was gonna say, thank you for mentioning Norm Finkelstein's book, because Norm Finkelstein was on everybody remember he was on Candace Owens' show for like a very long interview where he did most of the talking, and he went through the whole, as much of the history as he could when he was on her show. So that's why it's hilarious to me. I'm just like, did you not listen to anything that Norm Finkelstein said to you when he was on the show?
Clearly not. It's wild to me that they end the logic with, it just must be something about being Jewish. It's the most ridiculous thing. Especially their big thing is, well, who are the finance capitalists, Noah? Who are they? I'm like, let's see, Rockefeller, Carnegie, DuPont, Mellon, Ford, Vanderbilt. We could keep going down the list of the white Anglo-Saxon Protestants that they used to call WASPs. I don't understand where their disproportionately Jewish thing even comes from. And even if that were true, just say for the sake of argument, it was. So what? What does being Jewish have to do with the problem of finance capital being parasitic on the rest of the economy and causing such deep stabilizations that people have to acquire colonies? You know what I mean? There's no actual causation, no link. There's a complete disconnect.
Did we get to the point where she calls Zelensky a Bolshevik yet?
Not yet.
Okay, just making sure.
I'm sorry, I ramble, and we're already at almost an hour. I apologize, guys.
No, it's all good. It's all good. Let's get into this. Continue.
That they have been involved in historically. Noah wants to talk about the USS Liberty. With allies like this, who needs enemies? I am tired of being involved in their crap. I'm America first. I won't apologize for it. I'm Christianity first. I won't apologize for it. And that upsets some people because I guess, how dare she have the audacity? Well, guess what? I have the audacity, folks.
Unless she's talking about following in the footsteps of a Palestinian that actually taught people 2,000 years ago I was Jewish, but hey.
You can't be America first if you look down on millions and millions of Americans, by the way.
That's what I was going to say.
Yep, exactly. All right.
So you're saying that there was a greater Holocaust of Christians that happened, and it was committed by the Bolsheviks, and the leader of them at the time was a Jewish guy.
Well, Henry Kagoda, what really ran the Gulag camp system. So people should read, if you're interested, Alexander Solzhenitsyn talking about how shocking it was to watch the American president linking arms with Stalin, talking about we're putting an end to the Holocaust in World War II, and Stalin was still mass killing Christians in Russia. I mean, it's an absolute nonsense. And you got to take it back all the way. You know, the Bolshevik Revolution happened. They assassinated the Tsar, I think, in 1880. And then by the time they actually properly took over, I think.
We already went over this. They didn't assassinate the Tsar in 1880.
She said they did it in 1880?
Like, she's just making things up at this point.
Brother.
The October Revolution happens in 1917. It is a world historic date. And you can remember
40-year difference.
Right.
Right.
And it wasn't even right after the it wasn't the day of the revolution, or it wasn't October when they killed the monarchs. They captured them for a while and dragged them around and then did it later on.
And 1917, not 1880 or whatever. World War I is why the revolution was able to happen in the first place.
Right. Solzhenitsyn was also he was like a Russian monarchist. So that was the reason he hated Stalin so bad. He like supported the Tsar and the Orthodox Church. He like supported Russian feudalism. So that was his politics and why he was against the revolution, because he was a complete reactionary.
He also got imprisoned for aiding fascist saboteurs. So there's that.
Oh.
Yeah. He's quite the guy.
Yeah, good guy. His own wife divorced him and said he'd been lying about everything too while he was in prison. So
just read Grover Fur instead.
All right. Let's continue.
I think it was around 1910. And so what was going on in Russia at that time was they immediately took over. They started a gulag system, concentration camps, where they were mass drowning Christians in barges. And this information is readily available, and yet you never learn about it. And people don't want to talk about it. It makes them very uncomfortable.
Did somebody say something?
I was going to say, notice what she did there. This information is readily available, but she never tells you, she doesn't give you the source.
Eddie looked for that information all day today and couldn't find it.
It is anything but readily available. I tried Google Scholar. I tried Bing. I tried everything. I tried ChatGPT. ChatGPT just straight up told me it's not true.
It is not true.
How many barges were in gulags? It doesn't even make sense. Drowning people in barges inside of gulags. First of all, by the way, gulag, if you actually speak Russian, is sort of it doesn't mean, prison. It's a reference to the administration and paperwork and bureaucracy that makes organizations like prisons or insane asylums at that point in time run correctly, right? So they just like the word gulag because it sounds scary.
Gosh, gee, Louise, these guys, I'm telling you.
Readily available is code for it's in my neo-Nazi movie.
Oh my goodness. All right.
Is readily available, and yet you never learn about it. And people don't want to talk about it. It makes them very uncomfortable.
Well, I didn't hear about it until I heard you talk about it.
Yeah, Henry Yagoda. Look him up. It's stunning. He must have killed alone 15 million.
What?
Is she talking about Yezhov, maybe?
I don't know. I was just saying it was Jimmy's like, I've never heard about it. It's like, yeah, bro, because it didn't happen.
Right, like the only thing I could think about, I could really think she's trying to refer to is Yezhov Shina, which there was this guy named Yezhov who was head of the NKVD. And he was an anti-communist and made it to head of NKVD and started waves of mass false arrests, executed innocent people, and was stopped when they finally investigated him, and Stalin had him executed because he was, a saboteur and he had committed treason and killed all these people. But she's acting, if that's what she's talking about, because I have no idea this guy's name, Yagoda or whatever. If that's who she's talking about, and some of the other sort of people in his circle get put under the Yezhov Shina banner. So maybe then she's doing the same thing that Sabby mentioned in the very beginning, taking that kernel of truth, twisting it around, and then giving you a false reason for it, along with exaggerating it at just insane rates. Insane rates. If they kept killing these many millions of people, there wouldn't have been anyone left to fight and die in World War II.
It would have been like 15% of the Christian population at the time. I did the
Right.
math there. All right, we got to get to the part where she calls Zelensky.
Right, yeah. I'll shut up. I apologize, guys. I got to run downstairs anyway. I'll be right back.
Okay.
Million people.
Candace,
And this is a person that's not even spoken about. And so that's the reason why Piers just goes, okay, yeah, no, okay, let's move on to the next point. So in my viewpoint, the Israeli government has way too much involvement with the American government. And part of that, this program, and you saw this after October 7th, Congress immediately passed that there would be we would be learning about October 7th in schools as if it was like Pearl Harbor, right? A day that will live in infamy. Why? This is not my country. That's a nonsense. And if the answer is, because it's a day that should live in infamy, why just Israel? Why just Israel?
Right.
Why not also what's happening in Armenia or happening in Nigeria or happening all over the world? Why not a day that will live in infamy? Russia actually just went through a terror attack, and Russia has a lot of Christians. I'm Christian. So if we can just start drafting over days of terror that happen on the basis of our religion, I'd like to draft what just happened in Russia. I want my kids to learn about that in school.
Go ahead, Kurt.
Hey, so you said the thing about concentration camps. I thought the Cecil Rhodes, Boer War concentration camps came first. Am I wrong about that?
Pardon, could you say the last tidbit?
The Boer War in South Africa when Cecil Rhodes, the architect of apartheid that Israel uses,
what year was that?
Like in 1889 or something, I thought.
It could have been. You might be right. I know that. I think the Gulag system was particularly evil.
Yeah.
So, but you could be right. I wouldn't
well, if you
be
read
able to debate
Tragedy
you on
and
that
Hope,
point.
You read Tragedy and Hope by Carol Quigley. They have pictures of it. It looks like Auschwitz. And the Rhodes Scholarship is still available to this day. Clinton, I think Obama was one. We still have stuff in that guy's name. That guy invented that stuff. In fact, his little cadre with Wall Street invented the Bolsheviks and the Nazis, which is kind of interesting.
And it's crazy because so many of those sick, demented communists came over to America after. They were like, this is the why Alexander Solzhenitsyn writes.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, so many Nazis came over to America after World War II. Yep. This is well-known information in this country at this point. You actually learn about Operation Paperclip in school these days, right? Which is a good thing. You don't learn that their predecessors are still in important offices within both the state and bureaucracy, but
people give Jimmy a hard time, but Kurt Mesger doesn't get enough pushback because that guy has some takes, interesting takes and rambles on Jimmy's show. But like there, he said that Wall Street funded the Bolsheviks. Okay, so why did the U.S. and UK and all the Western powers invade Russia after the revolution to topple the Bolsheviks? You really think the Wall Street bankers supported all of Russia and the Soviet republics being closed off to foreign multinationals, being closed off to Western exploitation and being reinvested in development and the people? No, of course not. They hated that. That's why they've tried to topple every single socialist government that's ever propped up in the same way that they tried to do to the USSR. So to say that, the corporations who we know control our political system here in the US were actually supporting the Bolsheviks and the seizure of their own wealth, like, come on. It doesn't get more stupid than this.
And here's why they hated the Bolsheviks and invaded when they took power and loved the Nazis. You know what the first thing the Bolsheviks did was canceled the loans. They said, we're not paying this. The czars had taken out immense loans from Wall Street. They didn't pay a dime. Guess who kept paying the entire time he was at war with the U.S.? Hitler. Ford loved him some Hitler. Henry Ford especially. There was almost a fascist coup in this country. Thank God it didn't happen. But yeah, I noticed that too, Eddie. I'm glad you said something.
Yep. All right, let's continue.
You had the trials. You had the Nuremberg trials at the end of Nazi Germany. Where were the trials for the Bolsheviks?
Well, we were
where were the
saving
trials
the
for
Nazis.
Henryk Yagoda, who was actually ended up being killed because they always end up eating their own? But where were all?
Does she mean the McCarthy era where they were actually locking up people who were suspected of being communists?
And she just said, where was the trial for Yagoda? Yagoda had a trial and he was shot. He was tried and killed in the Soviet Union. What the hell are you talking about? She's so stupid.
Oh, my stars and straps.
All of these trials for the people that were mass murdering Christians. They killed about 10,000 priests. I mean, locking down churches. And people tell me to go support Zelensky as he's shutting down churches. You want me to support this Bolshevik? I'm not doing it. And so they can't believe it. What the propaganda tells you. He's a good guy. Oh yeah, totally good guy.
I'm so sorry, but we got to stop again.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's the end, right?
Oh my God. So first, have you noticed that this entire time, all she's been doing is saying, look, the Nazis are so much better than the communists. We should be hating the communists, not the Nazis. That's been her goal this entire time. And it's really transparent and really disgusting. Secondly, calling Zelensky, who is literally taking orders from the people who are the in the same organization, or the sort of descendant of the organizations that were Waffen SS and allied to the Nazis during World War II. A Bolshevik is ridiculous. I don't even know where to begin with that one.
She's sending a dog whistle to that Nick Fuentes crowd.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And she calls Zelensky a Bolshevik. And the reason I've been hyping this up and wanting to talk about that specific claim is because the closest thing that we have to modern Bolsheviks are probably the people in the Donbass region who have been fighting against the Nazi-aligned Ukrainian government since 2014. The people leading the struggle in the Donbass were the Communist Party. That's why they called it the People's Republic of Lugansk and the People's Republic of Donetsk, after they had the referendum to become free from Ukraine, because they were being shelled by these neo-Nazi militias that Zelensky allowed into the Ukrainian military, or Poroshenko, or whoever it was. But so those people in eastern Ukraine, which is now Russia, are people who wish the Soviet Union never fell. Because under the Soviet Union, this wasn't happening. They didn't have the West and NATO meddling in their country, putting neo-Nazis in their government and shelling their children while they're at school. That's what happened, after the fall of the Soviet Union. So, the vast majority of people there are communists who wish that they still had the USSR. And those are the people who Zelensky's murdering. So to say that he's a Bolshevik when he's murdering the people who are the closest thing that we have in the modern world to Bolsheviks is laughably wrong.
And there was, this is really funny. Candace Clown and Sabby stopped giving the grift away.
there was a famous American who went to Lugansk to fight with alongside them, and he was a communist. His name was Russell Texas Bentley. Unfortunately, he was killed doing what he considered his duty. But one of the famous things he said during the war was, we have God and we have Lenin on our side. We can't lose. So, another thing where like Candace is lying to us. Communists have nothing against Christians and we just don't. It's Eddie and I are both in leadership of the American Communist Party. I can tell you for a fact, we love Christians. A lot of us are Christians, especially in the U.S. with the history of the progressive church playing such a big role, in our history. But all right, I'm sorry, I'm rambling. Go ahead, someone stop me, shut me up.
All right. Let's continue. Let's finish this up.
To suspend elections, shut down churches, that really does sound like we're defending democracy all over the world. Let's get this guy some more money. Yeah, I'd like a pass on that.
Why are you so homophobic? Zelensky's just a nice guy. He likes to dance around in leather hot pants.
Latex.
And that's it.
I don't even know what they're talking about there. I don't even know what
I don't know either. I don't know what that has to do with anything. But yeah, so I mean, to tie it up in a nice bow, I mean, is it hyperbolic to say that she lied, or is it really more on point to say that she lied?
We'll let the audience decide that one.
Oh, we should have had a poll, JB.
Oh man, I should have put a poll. Damn it. I don't have enough time though. But with that being said, I think it's pretty safe to say that Candace, you fibbed. You fibbed. But one of the things that I also wanted to ask you guys about was you just mentioned the American Communist Party. There are different communist parties that are coming up. And I saw that there was some mutual aid being done in California recently with the ACP. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, we just formed, or the party just formed, obviously, a splinter of CPUSA. A lot of clubs and rank and file members from them came over to the ACP. Same with PCUSA, and then just a lot of people who were communists but didn't have an organization that they believed in, who were waiting for something like this to come along. But right now, we're still in the process of processing all of the applicants and forming the clubs over, in different geographic regions across the U.S. And because there are so many different cultures and different kinds of material conditions in the U.S., just as a result of its massive size, the party, there's a necessity to be somewhat decentralized and give the clubs a lot of autonomy. So right now, we're forming the clubs, helping them to start getting to know each other. And then one of the ways we're doing that is through these cleaning brigades. So it's obviously like the easiest form of organizing you can do. It helps because you're making your community clean, and it looks good for the party, and you're improving people's material conditions in a very simple way. So we've been doing those cleaning brigades, getting people immersed in their communities, getting people out doing stuff with others. So those club bonds between the members can sort of start to form. We're really excited about that and all the work that's been going on. If you want to follow what we're doing, ACP Maine on X at ACP Maine. And, I won't say that the party's for everyone. Like, only join the party if you're really ready to get some work done, and really ready to start making a difference. It's not going to be like CPUSA where you just sign up and, they give you a little card and then nobody contacts you for 2 years, right? We'll actually be putting you with a group of people who are going to be doing things and being active. But if you want to do that, if you want to join, acp.us.
Yeah, can I just add a couple of things to that? We consider the old party illegitimate as of their support for genocide and forcing their membership to support genocide. No communist party would ever do that. They dissolved themselves. We were in a position to pick up the pieces, and so we did. And I'm maybe more excited about the cleaning brigades in really, it's more of a community. It's not just the cleaning brigades. It's a whole community service initiative. Than I have been about anything in a long time. Jaybe, you mentioned the thing in LA. Our comrades in LA went down to Skid Row and helped homeless people get clothing they needed. And that's just one. In the Bay Area in California, they cleaned up more trash on main roads than I've seen anyone clean in my life. It was insane, the amount of trash that just piled up, and the state didn't do anything about it. The city didn't do anything about it. None of those giant corporations and all their money did anything about it. We did. And I think that's what it takes. Regular people getting together,
Yep, I truly believe that. And one thing I am happy to see is I'm seeing more groups pop up. So, of course, the ACP, which you guys are affiliated with, the Revolutionary Communist Party, they also did a big march out in Philadelphia a few weeks back. That was promising to see that they're getting up. And of course, we at RBN, we have our chapters where we're doing mutual aid as well. We're trying to do that the best we possibly can. And
we love seeing you guys doing that stuff. It's amazing.
And want to work together more too.
For sure. I wanted to ask you guys, how is the library project going? I know Rome had a library thing he was doing.
Yeah, it's going pretty good. It's just he had to take a little bit of a break because, there's some different, personal issues that he was going through health-wise and things like that. But he'll be getting back into it. He's kind of on pause right now because they're going to be in Chicago next week for a particular reason that everybody knows. But yeah, so he's gonna be jumped back on that again soon. It's almost done too. That's the best part about it. So also, I think he's accepting books too now.
Well, I was gonna say, not just from the Institute, from a obviously yes from the Institute, but from me and a hookup I have. If you guys need books, just say the word, and I'll get you many books.
All right. Thank you so very much. Appreciate it.
My pleasure, brother. My pleasure.
Definitely. All right. So if you guys can let the audience know. Sabby, do you have anything you wanted to add before? Oh, no. Okay, good. I saw you were unmuted. Okay. So if with that being said, everybody, you guys can follow Midwestern Marx on their channel on YouTube, and as well as you can go to Marx Midwest on Twitter. And yes, I still
we changed it. It's at Midwestern Marx now. Sorry.
Oh, it's at Midwestern Marx.
Yeah.
So you guys got okay, good. Okay, cool. So you guys can also follow them there as well. Eddie, Noah, so good to see you. Also give a hello to Carlos and Danny from me as well at the Institute.
Will do. Thanks so much for having us. This was a gem of a video to react to. So this was fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, right, thank you guys. We love you.
All right. Love you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right, Sabs. Now, shall we get to the chats?
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to start off with the super chats. I want to make sure we get those first because people put some hard-earned money in there, and I want to make sure that we get to those. So we're going to go to Powell. Lindowski says, hi, Noah. Do you or Carlos offer courses on Marxism on the weekend, since I would likely attend the next time, but I live in Austria and there's a huge time difference. Love you in RBN. Oh, I wish I had saw that. If you want to, you can actually reach out and ask that question. I'm not sure if they're still watching, but if you want, you can actually reach out on their Twitter. They respond pretty easily. So I think their DMs are open. So if you can get with them there, they'll probably be able to answer that question for you. Thank you very much for that. Thank you very much for the super sticker, James Starks. All right. Not to be confused with Tony.
I know. I see that name. I think.
Right. Me and my goofy self. Martin says, truly enjoying this talk. Thank you all. Thank you very much, Martin. James starts again with another super sticker. Thank you so very much. We have Tima says the Armenian and Anatolian Greek genocides were allowed to happen because the West used what was left of their manpower to stop the Russian Revolution. All right, just checking to see if we have any more super chats before I go into anything. Okay, looks like we're good there. I'm going to check to see if we have any tips on Rockfin. Not at the moment. And so let me see. Oh God, I can't believe I just read this. There's a video circulating of Zelensky dancing around in latex tight pants and stilettos in his past life as a clown.
Okay, I'm gonna have to Google that.
Sabs, don't Google it. Don't.
I haven't seen that. Oh my God! Yikes!
Okay. Wow. Okay. And then I just wanted to give some attention to this from Janine. She says, as an 80s baby, I didn't learn about Hanukkah until I went to college, and it was listed on my calendar. That and Adam Sandler's 8 Crazy Nights movie.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So I didn't know either. But anyways, so for that, Sabs, I think you have a show this evening. So what you got going on?
Yeah, it's going to be a big show. I have a third party voter panel right at the top of the hour. And then after that, I actually have six news stories to cover, but they're short stories. But yeah, because I'm not going to be live Friday night because Jaybe and I, if you guys don't know, Jaybe and I are going to be on Jill Stein's VP panel announcement Friday night. So I won't have a show tomorrow.
Yep, it's going to be fun. Yeah. So yeah, going to have some fun. TGIF. Remember that, Sabs? On Friday nights on ABC.
Yeah.
All right. And so just to let you guys know, I will be live on Sunday at 1 p.m. Eastern for the Jaybe show. And yeah, so who am I having on Sunday? Let me take a look. I'm always forgetting. This is why I have a calendar now, because if not, I will forget. So this Sunday, I will be having on Todd Schaefer. Todd Schaefer is actually running for local office under the Green Party. So I'll be having him this Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So be sure to tune in to my channel as well. So Sabby's channel is linked in the description below, as well as mine. So you guys have no excuses to go and give a watch. Okay. All right. So outside of that, Sabs, I guess we're out, and I will play the patron names on the way out.
Well, let me just answer this real quick. FM Sabby, can you ask Jill Stein to do more Black media? She's been on other Black media shows. I don't know if you've seen it, but it really, the invite has to come from the show. Like it's typically like we're the ones that reach out to the guest. So they would need to reach out and invite her on. That's the thing. So, but I have seen her on. I know she was on Black Power Media. There was another one too. I thought that Jill was on. I can't remember all the names, but
yeah,
it might have been a smaller channel. But again, like typically they would reach out to the candidate or to the team. Yeah,
I would like to see African Diaspora Network reach out and have her on, to have a discussion, especially in regards to reparations. I think that'd be great.
Yeah, Danny Bree has had her on multiple times. I don't think so. The African Diaspora Network, I don't think I've seen them interview candidates. I don't know if that's something they really want to do, because I haven't seen them interview any political candidates. So maybe that's just not. Maybe that's not their thing.
Yeah, you're probably right. But yeah, so I would like to see other ones have her on, because I think that's really important. Like Breakfast Club,
I said like, oh yes, you're right too, Danny, Mark Lamont Hill. That's right, that's true. I don't understand why the Breakfast Club. Well, no, I take that back. I do understand why it's the Breakfast Club, but Breakfast Club should have had her on. Yes, Bride Biscuit. She was also on Nico's show. So yeah, she has been on Black media, but not all media is pursuing interviewing candidates either. So that's another thing. It's not everybody's thing.
Yeah, that's true. But either way, I hope to see more Black independent media to have the third party candidates on, because I think that's really important, because a lot of Black people were constantly being sheep herded into either party, right? You got Black people now starting to be more in the Republican Party. You got Black people that are staying within the Democratic Party. And it's like, no, we got other options, y'all. We can go other way.
And I'll go ahead and let you know right now. I think some people think that Charlemagne the God and the host of the Breakfast Club own the breakfast, like it's their thing. It's not their thing. They're just the host. And from what I understand, the people who own the Breakfast Club are very particular about who they bring onto that show. Yeah.
All right.
So there you go.
Okay, so let's get going. Thank you so very much to everybody, and we shall take off. Sabs, have a great night. Oh, and by the way, I'll be out, celebrating my niece's 21st birthday. So if you get a weird, like goofy ass text from me, you'll know why.
Have fun, Jaybe.
Thanks. All right, everybody. Take care and have a good one. And thanks to all the patrons on Patreon. And if you guys would like to, the Patreon is in the ticker below. Deuces, Bruces.